In the western half of the Roman Empire, in the city of Ravenna, Italy, a squad of soldiers moves to arrest a high-ranking servant. A servant caught in a scandal that would forever change the course of the Roman Empire. Honoria, sister of the Roman Emperor Valentinian, is pregnant by her Chamberlain lover. Her brother orders the Chamberlain arrested and put to death. Honoria is forced into a loveless engagement. But she is defiant.
She had contacts of her own. She had influence and power of her own. She was able to envisage herself playing politics on the imperial scale, as women of the imperial family often were.
Honoria dispatches a swift messenger to deliver her daring proposal to Attila the Hun. He reaches Attila far to the north at his palace in Hungary. The missive is brief, but it has the power to rock the civilized world. To escape her fate, this daughter of Rome offers her hand in marriage to Attila the Hun.
And she wrote to Attila, offering herself as a bride and the Western Empire as her dowry if he would come to Italy, conquer his prize, and rescue her.
It must have been an extraordinary moment out there on the Hungarian plain as this message arrives from a Roman princess. A letter, and it's a bracelet also, comes with it as a token of surety that she means what she says.
Attila took this invitation very seriously, as did Honoria's brother. When the Western Roman emperor said, there's no possibility of this happening, then Attila continued to send embassies saying, this is right, and you have to honor your sister's wishes. This is what she wants. The brother rather huffily replies, women don't control Roman rule, men do.
Attila can justify battling the new Eastern Emperor Marcian over his refusal to pay the Huns tribute. But that suddenly seems no longer worth fighting about. The Western Roman Empire presents a better, weaker target with higher stakes. Using Honoria's proposal, Attila directs his assault into the heart of Gaul, collecting allies along the way: the Gepids, the Ostrogoths. The year 450 casts a dark shadow across Europe. Attila believes he has a legitimate claim to Rome, but the Romans do not agree. As his campaign takes its bloody toll, the Roman court and the Holy Church will dub him the Scourge of God. The Church delineates good and evil in Rome. It separates the pagan from the blessed, and it performs God's work, protecting the empire from the ravages of the devil. To the Church, Attila is evil incarnate. The charismatic Pope Leo I and his officials dispatch a stern warning to those cities suffering under the wrath of the Huns. Clearly, God has punished them for their sins. They must offer their righteous obedience to the Church, or suffer the consequences of Attila's brutality. Only one man now stands in the way of the Huns' onslaught. Aetius, the Huns' one-time child captive, has grown to become Rome's greatest living general and its sole hope for salvation. The lessons Aetius learned in his boyhood among the Huns will never be more important.
When Aetius was a diplomatic hostage with the Huns, he would have been incorporated into Hunnic society. He would have learned about Hunnic tactics and military training. So I think that he learned a great deal about what it meant to be a Hun, how to fight, how to live, how to govern as a Hun.
For Attila to conquer Gaul and win the Hunnic Empire he dreams of, he must defeat Aetius and his seasoned army of Romans and tribal allies. In the clash to come, two brutal civilizations will fight savagely against each other, and the resulting battle could likely spell Rome's doom. 451 AD, Rome fights for its life against the Huns. At stake is control of the entire empire. Winning will require all the strength Rome can muster. A Roman horseman dashes across a landscape of fear, carrying a desperate message from the Roman general Aetius to the other barbarian tribes long dreaded by Rome. Join us, the message says, in defending the empire against the army of Attila and his horde of 50,000 Huns. It is a risky plan, to marshal Rome's former enemies into a unified force to defeat an even bigger adversary. The marauding Huns threaten all of Europe. If Rome falls, nothing will stop their bloody swath across the continent. Aetius hopes others will see that and join to help crush them.
Aetius has solved the problem of what to do now the Huns won't be his allies by creating his own new sets of allies out of Goths, Burgundians, all the people that he used to use the Huns to fight against, he's now brought over onto his own side. So a great Roman and Federate barbarian army is gathered by Aetius to face up to the Huns who are already on the retreat.
The 6th century Gothic chronicler, Jordanes, records that the kings of nations fighting for Attila hung on his every nod. Attila alone, he writes, was king of all kings. And Jordanes recounts for posterity the speech the Hun leader delivers to his troops. What is sweeter for a brave man than to seek revenge with his own hand, he writes. It is a right of nature to glut the soul with vengeance. For when the sinews are cut, the limbs soon relax. Let your courage rise and your own fury burst forth. Let the unwounded revel in slaughter of the enemy. Why should fortune have made the Huns victorious over so many nations unless it were to prepare them for the joy of this conflict? In battle, both the Huns and the Romans depend on help from other ethnic forces. But how much they can depend on these men remains an open question.
They weren't completely sure of the loyalty of some of their groups. And so each side tried to arrange its troops in a way that would be both effective in the face of the arrangement that they could see the enemy was making, but also that would, help those who were perhaps wavering in their dedication to the cause see that the only way for them to go was forward and not backwards.
June 20th, the year 451. On the Catalonian plains near Orléans, France, the forces square off. The two sides are equal in number, between 30 and 50,000 men all told. The Battle of Chalons erupts. It is one of the most important conflicts in world history, for its outcome will decide if Europe falls to the hands of the Huns. The battle rages from morning through the night and into the following day. The fight grew fierce, confused, monstrous, unrelenting, the chroniclers write. A fight whose like no ancient time has ever recorded. The Hun troops pierce the center column, while their allies contain the flanks. The battle rages, hand to hand, sword to flesh.
Foot soldiers in ancient battles were looking death in the face quite literally. The battle might begin with artillery, that is to say, archery from a distance, but it was going to eventually be decided in very close quarters.
It's really a bunch of men urging their horses on and pushing. There's much pushing in these battles. Pushing and yelling. And sometimes yelling in death, because people get killed in these battles. And it's not probably a very pleasant way to die. I think that losing blood over a period of many minutes is an agonizing death by any standard. And that's what we're talking about here. People just bled to death. So you have all these sights and sounds, horses dying, men dying, a lot of blood.
It was frightening. It was noisy. People were loosing their bowels and screaming, and their guts were falling out right in front of you. So just to keep your courage up was an incredible challenge. That meant that you were just flooded with adrenaline. It must have been incredibly frightening and confusing, because remember, of course, there isn't any way to have instantaneous or secure communication. Once the battle begins, especially if you're wearing a helmet, and if the helmet covers your ears, which for some people it may have and some it didn't, the only thing you can basically hear is the pounding of the blood in your ears.
The Huns' hold is tenuous, and Attila's center troops suddenly find themselves outflanked by the Roman allies.
The battle is joined on the plain, and for the first time, Attila suffers a major military reverse. The reverse is so substantial on the first day that, according to our sources, Attila was ready to create a funeral pyre for himself out of horses' saddles and consume himself, kill himself. The cult of victory had been broken. Again, according to the same sources, he's persuaded not to do this. Battle is rejoined. So the Huns managed to restore some of the sense of Attila's charisma. It's not all completely broken. It's a sort of fighting draw, and they can retreat on that basis and head off back to Hungary.
Routed by the battle, the Huns leave defeated, but not dispirited. The victorious but greatly reduced Roman troops slog back home through the carnage. One historian writes, "Those whose wounds drove them to slake their parching thirst drank water mingled with gore." Legend holds that the ghosts of the dead continued the fight for days to come.